A man's voice cuts through the darkness. Deep, weathered. The kind of voice that's seen things most people only have nightmares about. In my world, debts are paid in blood or honor.
Sheriff, you have to look at this.
Sometimes
I'm looking.
both.
What am I seeing?
This is the
Proof he
story
was
of
there.
how
You
a
have to
stranger
act.
paid
All right,
mine.
I'm on it.
The voice belongs to Declan Garrett, 58 years old, president of the Ironclad Motorcycle Club,
I wanted to share
and the
something.
man whose life
Of
was
course,
about to
we're
change on a
listening.
Saturday
been
afternoon
so
in June.
hard.
Main
You're not
Street,
alone.
Oak Ridge, Arizona. The sun hangs high over Main Street like a judge's gavel, waiting to fall. Heat shimmers off the asphalt. Store awnings provide thin strips of shade that do nothing against the Arizona burn. Sarah Calloway steps out of Donovan's Market carrying a canvas grocery bag. 36 years old, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that's more about function than fashion. She wears jeans and a faded navy t-shirt that's seen better days. But it's her eyes that tell the real story. They move, constantly, scanning, cataloging, assessing. 12 years as a Navy corpsman attached to force recon units will do that to you. 12 years in places where a moment of inattention meant body bags, where reading a situation before it developed was the difference between going home and going home in a flag-draped coffin. Sarah doesn't think about it anymore. The scanning, the threat assessment, it's as automatic as breathing. 4 exits on Main Street. She notes them without conscious thought. 12 parked vehicles, license plates registered and dismissed. 23 civilians, families browsing shop windows, couples at outdoor cafe tables, an old man reading a newspaper on a bench. Threat level, 0. The scar along her jawline catches the sunlight as she pauses to shift the grocery bag to her other hip. A souvenir from Helmand Province, an IED that killed 2 Marines and left her with a permanent reminder that luck is a finite resource. 3 years out of the service, and civilian life still feels like an ill-fitting uniform. She starts walking toward her truck, a beat-up Ford Ranger that's older than some of the new recruits she used to treat. The passenger side mirror is held on with duct tape. The paint has faded from red to a color that might charitably be called rust-adjacent. But it runs, and it's paid for. That's enough. Halfway across the street, something changes. Not a sound, not movement, just a wrongness that triggers every alarm her combat experience has wired into her nervous system. A flash of light, metallic, brief, between 2 parked cars 30 yards to her left. Her brain processes the information in milliseconds. Angle of reflection, height, shape, gun barrel. Her eyes snap to the target before her conscious mind catches up. A tall man stands outside the Silver Spur Diner, late 50s, leather vest over a black t-shirt. The vest is covered in patches, rockers, insignia, the visual language of motorcycle clubs. The patch on his back is impossible to miss even from this distance. A death's head with iron wings. The words Ironclad MC arched above it. President below. The man is laughing, coffee cup in one hand, talking to 2 companions who flank him like bodyguards. All 3 wear the same colors. He hasn't seen the threat, doesn't know that death is lining up a shot from between 2 parked cars. Sarah's training makes the decision before her conscious mind has time to debate the wisdom of getting involved. The grocery bag hits the pavement. An orange rolls across the concrete with a hollow sound that seems too loud in the moment before everything changes. 3 strides, fast, purposeful. Her boots strike the pavement with deliberate force. Her right hand comes up, palm open, aimed at the biker's chest. Gun! The word cuts through the lazy afternoon chatter like a blade. Her hand slams into the biker's chest. The impact transfers through her entire body. He's solid, maybe 6'2", 200 pounds of muscle and leather. But physics is physics, and momentum is momentum. He staggers sideways, coffee cup flying from his hand. His back hits the diner's exterior wall. The crack of the pistol shot arrives a fraction of a second after the impact. Sarah feels it before she hears it. A sledgehammer blow to her left shoulder that spins her half around. Heat blooms outward from the point of impact. Not pain, not yet, just heat and pressure, and the strange sensation of something that shouldn't be inside her body. She keeps her feet through pure, stubborn will. Her right hand moves automatically to the wound. Press, maintain pressure, stop the bleeding. The litany of field medicine runs through her head like a prayer she said 1,000 times. Blood seeps between her fingers, warm and wet and entirely too familiar. The street erupts, screams, the scrape of chairs as cafe patrons dive for cover. Car alarms triggered by the gunshot. The two men who were standing with the biker president are already moving. One sprints toward the alley where the shot originated. The other steps protectively in front of his president while scanning for additional threats. Military training. Sarah recognizes it instantly. The economy of movement, the tactical positioning. These aren't weekend warriors playing dress-up. Her vision narrows slightly. Edges going gray. Adrenaline doing its job but starting to lose the fight against shock and blood loss. The shooter is already moving. Male, medium height, black baseball cap, retreating down the alley between the hardware store and what used to be a movie theater before the multiplex opened on the highway. Sarah's tactical assessment continues despite the fire spreading through her shoulder. Single shooter, clean shot, subsonic round, likely 9mm, no follow-up shots, not a professional hit, but not random either. The man she saved steps forward. Up close, he's older than she first registered. Late 50s, maybe pushing 60. Silver streaks run through dark hair pulled back in a short ponytail. A beard that can't quite hide the scar tissue around his left eye. His eyes are glacier blue, and they take her measure with uncomfortable intensity. You knew it was coming. It's not a question, just a statement of fact delivered in a voice that's used to being listened to. Sarah's breath comes in controlled measures, the way she trained herself during firefights. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Manage the pain, stay functional. Saw the reflection, barrel glint. Economy of words. Her shoulder is screaming now. The adrenaline is wearing off, and the reality of a 9mm bullet wound is asserting itself with authority. Sirens wail in the distance. Growing closer, the biker who chased the shooter returns, shaking his head. Gone, knew the back routes. The older biker never takes his eyes off Sarah. You're bleeding badly. Sarah glances at her shoulder. Blood has soaked through her t-shirt, running down her arm, dripping from her fingertips. Been worse. It's true. Helmand Province, that IED. She'd treated 17 wounded Marines while taking fire. This is just a through and through. Painful, messy, but survivable if she keeps pressure on it. The biker removes his leather vest, moves with surprising gentleness for a man his size, presses the vest against her wound. I'm Declan Garrett, he says carefully, and it appears I owe you my life. Sarah's lips twitch in what might be a smile under different circumstances. Sarah Calloway, let's call it professional courtesy. The last thing she registers before the paramedics arrive is the look in Declan's eyes. A mixture of gratitude and respect, and something that resembles a solemn vow. In the world he inhabits, debts are sacred things, written in blood and remembered forever. As they load her into the ambulance, Sarah catches one final glimpse of the street through the narrowing doors. Declan stands surrounded by leather-clad men, his posture rigid, scanning every corner as though he could will the shooter back into view. His voice carries clearly as the doors begin to close. Find him, whatever it takes. The words have the weight of absolute authority behind them. 3 days before the shooting, Sarah Calloway's life follows a pattern as predictable as a metronome. Wake at 0500. Old habits die hard. Check the windows, all of them. Ground floor first, then upstairs. Note any changes in the street. New vehicles, unfamiliar faces, anything that disrupts the baseline. The Sig Sauer P226 sits in a fingerprint safe beside her bed. She checks it every morning. Magazine full, round chambered, safety on. The ritual is as ingrained as brushing her teeth. Her rental house is modest, a single-story ranch on a quiet street lined with cottonwood trees. The furniture is sparse and functional. No pictures on the walls, no knickknacks, no accumulation of the small things that transform a house into a home. She's been in Oak Ridge for 3 years, and the place still looks like she could pack up and leave in an hour. Maybe because part of her is always ready to do exactly that. The leather workshop occupies one corner of the living room, a workbench she bought from a retiring craftsman, tools arranged with military precision, leather pieces in various stages of completion, a messenger bag, belt strips, a shoulder holster that's nearly finished. Working with leather centers her. The repetitive motions, the smell of the material, the satisfaction of creating something tangible and useful. It's meditation for people who can't sit still. She makes coffee, black, no sugar, drinks it standing at the kitchen window while watching the sun paint the eastern sky in shades of amber and gold. Her phone buzzes on the counter, a text from the VA. Support group tonight, 7 p.m. Don't forget. She won't forget. The group is one of the few things that gives her civilian life structure. 8 combat medics in corpsmen meeting twice a month to talk about things that normal people can't understand. The shared language of people who've held pressure on wounds while calling for medevac, who've made decisions about who gets treated first when there aren't enough hands to save everyone, who've told young Marines and soldiers they'd be fine while knowing it was a comforting lie. Sarah sets her coffee cup in the sink, checks her watch. 07:30, time to head to her father's place. Clayton Calloway's house sits on the western edge of Oak Ridge, a small, ranch-style home with a carport instead of a garage. The yard is neat but unadorned, practical rather than pretty, like the man who lives there. Sarah pulls up in her Ford Ranger, kills the engine, sits for a moment collecting herself. Visiting her father is always complicated, not because they don't get along. They do, as well as 2 people with identical stubborn streaks can get along. It's complicated because Clayton Calloway is 78 years old and refuses to acknowledge that fact, refuses to slow down, refuses to accept help, refuses to stop being a Marine even though he mustered out 40 years ago. She finds him exactly where she expected, in the carport, under the hood of a neighbor's Ford F-150. His hands are black with grease. His work coveralls have seen better decades. Dad. Clayton doesn't look up from the engine block. Katie. Only her father calls her that. Only her father gets away with it. You know Mrs. Henderson has a warranty on that truck. She could take it to the dealership. Dealership charges $140 an hour. Clayton's voice has the rasp of a lifetime smoker, even though he quit 30 years ago. I charge her $40 and a plate of whatever she's cooking. He straightens up, wipes his hands on a rag that's probably dirtier than his hands, looks at his daughter with eyes the same pale blue as her own. The resemblance between them is striking. Same height, same lean build, same angular features, same way of holding themselves with military posture, even in civilian clothes. You eating? He asks. It's his standard greeting. Has been since Sarah's mother died 10 years ago. I eat, Dad. Eating means more than coffee and whatever's quick. Sarah fights the urge to sigh. This is familiar territory. They've had this conversation 100 times. I'll pick up groceries today. Make a real dinner. Clayton nods, satisfied for now. He moves to a small workbench, reaches for a thermos of coffee, pours a cup and hands it to her. They stand in comfortable silence for a moment, father and daughter, Marine and sailor. 2 people who understand each other better than either of them would ever say out loud. How's the group going? Clayton asks. He means the VA support group. He never says it directly, just calls it the group, like there's only one group in the world that matters. Good. Had 8 people last session. That's up from 6 the month before. The VA shrink still running it? Dr. Drummond, yeah, he's good. Doesn't push. Lets people talk when they're ready. Clayton grunts. Non-committal. He's never been big on psychiatrists. Too much talking about feelings. Not enough doing something useful. Sarah sips her coffee. It's terrible. Strong enough to strip paint. Exactly how her father has made it for 50 years. Her eye catches something on the workbench. A photograph in a simple frame. Black and white. Three men in desert camouflage. Younger versions of themselves. Standing in front of what looks like a military vehicle. She's seen the photo before. It's been on her father's workbench for as long as she can remember. But she's never really looked at it. Never asked about it. Today, something makes her pick it up. Clayton in the center. Younger, leaner, but unmistakably her father. Same eyes, same stance. To his left, another man, tall, strong features, sergeant stripes on his collar. To his right, a third man, slightly blurred, face partially obscured by shadow. Who are these guys? Clayton takes the photo, studies it like he's seeing it for the first time, even though he's probably looked at it 1,000 times. Kuwait, 91, joint operation, force recon in Army Rangers. He points to the man on the left. That's Garrett, Declan Garrett, staff sergeant. Good man, saved our asses more than once. Sarah looks closer at the younger version of Declan Garrett, trying to see the man he would become 33 years later. You still in touch with him? Clayton shakes his head. Lost track after the war. Different units, different lives. He's quiet for a moment, then adds, almost as an afterthought, heard he settled somewhere in Arizona, runs a motorcycle club or something. Sarah sets the photo back on the workbench. The third man's blurred face stares at nothing. What about the other guy? Clayton's expression changes, subtle, but Sarah knows her father well enough to read the shift. His jaw tightens, eyes go distant. Staff Sergeant Victor Kessler, Intel Liaison. The way he says the name carries weight, not fondness, something darker. Bad news? The worst kind. The kind that wears a uniform and calls himself a patriot while selling out his brothers. Clayton doesn't elaborate, just turns back to the Ford's engine like the conversation is over. Sarah knows better than to push. Her father talks about things on his own timeline. Trying to force it just makes him shut down harder. She finishes her coffee, rinses the cup in the outdoor sink Clayton uses for cleaning parts. I should get going. Groceries to buy. Support group tonight. Clayton nods, doesn't look up from the engine. Katie, she turns back. You be careful at that VA. Lot of broken people there. Some of them more broken than they look. It's the closest her father gets to expressing concern. She knows what he means. Knows he's thinking about the veterans who come home with wounds that don't show. PTSD. Depression. The slow spiral into addiction that claims more lives stateside than combat ever did overseas. I'm careful, Dad. I know you are. Just saying it anyway. She climbs into her truck, watches in the rearview mirror as her father bends back over the engine. 78 years old and still working with his hands. Still useful, still stubborn, still every inch a Marine. The Oak Ridge Veterans Center occupies a converted warehouse on 4th Street. Plain brick exterior, minimal signage. The kind of place you drive past 100 times without noticing. Inside, it's brighter, more welcoming. Someone put effort into making it feel safe rather than institutional. The support group meets in a room on the 2nd floor. Folding chairs arranged in a circle. No table, nothing between the participants. Dr. Silas Drummond insists on that, says it promotes honest communication. Sarah arrives 10 minutes early. Old habit. She likes to see who comes in. Likes to have the layout memorized. Likes to know where the exits are. The room has 2 exits. Door to the hallway, window that opens onto a fire escape. She notes both without thinking about it. Dr. Drummond is already there. 45 years old, neat beard going gray at the edges, wire-rimmed glasses. He wears slacks and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Casual enough to be approachable, professional enough to maintain boundaries. "Sarah, good to see you." His voice is calm, measured, the voice of someone trained to de-escalate situations. "Doc." She takes her usual seat, third chair from the door, facing the entrance. The others filter in over the next few minutes. Marcus, former Army medic, 2 tours in Iraq, struggles with alcohol. Jennifer, Navy corpsman like Sarah, served in Afghanistan, can't hold down a job for more than 3 months. Robert, Marine Corps corpsman, in his 70s now but still comes to every session. 5 others, all combat medics or corpsmen, all carrying invisible wounds that make civilian life feel like walking through a foreign country where you don't speak the language. Dr. Drummond starts the session the way he always does. "Who wants to share tonight?" Silence for a moment, then Marcus raises his hand slightly, the gesture of someone who's not sure he should speak, but knows he needs to. The pain's been bad this week, my back, from the Humvee accident." Everyone in the circle knows about Marcus's accident, an IED in Fallujah. The Humvee he was riding in flipped. 3 dead. Marcus survived with a crushed vertebra and chronic pain that's never gone away. "I've been taking more of the pills, more than prescribed." The admission hangs in the air. Dr. Drummond leans forward slightly. Not aggressive, just attentive. "How much more?" "Double, sometimes triple." "Have you talked to your doctor about adjusting your prescription?" Marcus shakes his head. "Can't. They're already worried I'm taking too much. If I ask for more, they'll cut me off, send me to pain management." Sarah knows where this is going. She's seen it before. The spiral starts slow. Pain that won't quit. Pills that help at first. Then they stop helping, so you take more and more, until the pills are the problem and the pain is just an excuse. She speaks before she thinks about it. "Pain management isn't the enemy, Marcus." He looks at her, defensive. "Easy for you to say, you're not living with this every day." "No, but I've seen what happens when pain management turns into dependency. I've seen good men and women fall into that hole." Her voice is firm but not unkind. "You're standing at the edge right now. You can step back, or you can fall. Your choice." Marcus looks like he wants to argue, but something in Sarah's eyes stops him. Maybe he sees the truth there. Maybe he just sees someone who's been downrange and understands that tough love is sometimes the only kind that works. "I'll think about it," he says finally. The session continues. Other stories, other struggles. The common thread of people trying to find their place in a world that doesn't understand what they've been through. Sarah mostly listens. She's never been much for sharing in these sessions. Talking about her feelings feels like indulgence, like weakness. But she shows up, every session, because sometimes just being present is enough. After the session ends, Dr. Drummond catches her at the door. "You're good at this, reading people, knowing when to push and when to back off." Sarah shrugs. 12 years as a corpsman, you learn to read Marines fast or you don't survive. "Ever think about doing this professionally?" "Counseling." "Not my thing, Doc. I'm better with physical wounds." He nods, accepts the deflection. "Well, thanks for coming. It helps. Having someone like you here, someone who's been there." Sarah doesn't know how to respond to that, so she just nods and heads for the stairs. She's halfway to her truck when her phone rings. Unknown number. She almost doesn't answer. Spam calls are constant these days, but something makes her pick up. "Hello? Ms. Calloway?" Male voice, older, authority in the tone. "Who's asking?" "Sheriff Augustus Mercer, Oak Ridge County. I'm sorry to bother you this evening, but I need to speak with you about something that happened today. Can you come by my office tomorrow morning?" Sarah's mind races. She hasn't done anything. No tickets, no violations, nothing that would bring the sheriff calling. "What's this about?" "Rather discuss it in person if that's all right. Say, 9 o'clock? It's phrased as a question but carries the weight of an order. "I'll be there." Appreciate it, Miss Calloway. See you tomorrow. The line goes dead. Sarah stands in the parking lot, phone in hand, trying to figure out what the sheriff of Oak Ridge County wants with a Navy veteran who keeps to herself and doesn't cause trouble. She can't shake the feeling that her quiet life is about to get a lot more complicated. Saturday morning, which brings us back to Main Street, to the moment when Sarah's life changes forever. The grocery bag hits the pavement. 3 strides. Her hand slams into Declan Garrett's chest. The gunshot, the impact, blood. Time compresses and expands in ways that only happen during combat or crisis. Sarah is on the ground now. Didn't realize she'd gone down. The paramedics are there, young, efficient. One of them is cutting away her shirt to get at the wound. "Ma'am, we need to get you to the hospital. This is a serious injury." Sarah's training kicks in even through the pain. Entry and exit, clean through, no arterial bleeding, pressure dressing, and fluids. The paramedic blinks. "You medical?" "Navy corpsman, 12 years. Understanding dawns in his eyes. "Then you know this is still serious." "I know, just do your job." They load her onto the gurney. Declan Garrett is there, moving alongside the ambulance, that same intense look in his eyes. "Hospital?" he asked the paramedics. "Oak Ridge Memorial." He nods, steps back, watches as they load Sarah into the ambulance. The last thing she sees before they close the doors is Declan pulling out his phone, making a call, giving orders to people who will follow them without question. In the distance, more motorcycles roar to life, the sound of brothers rallying to their president. Sarah closes her eyes, lets the paramedics do their work, and tries not to think about the fact that she just stepped into a world she doesn't understand. A world where debts are sacred, where loyalty is everything, where a stranger taking a bullet for you means something far more binding than gratitude. The ambulance siren wails, and Sarah Calloway's quiet life in Oak Ridge, Arizona, officially comes to an end. The fluorescent lights of Oak Ridge Memorial Hospital burn too bright against Sarah's retinas. She lies on the examination table, focusing on the ceiling tiles to manage the pain, while a nurse cleans and assesses the wound. The bullet went clean through her shoulder. Messy, painful, but nothing vital hit. The doctor says she's lucky. Sarah knows better. Luck had nothing to do with survival. "We'll give you something for the pain," the doctor offers. Young, probably straight out of residency, prescription pad already in hand. Sarah's refusal is immediate. "No opioids, nothing stronger than ibuprofen." The doctor frowns, fresh-faced concern. "Miss Calloway, this is a significant trauma. You're going to be in considerable pain." "I'm familiar with pain management and with opioid dependency after battlefield injuries. No narcotics." Understanding dawns in the doctor's eyes as he takes a closer look at her chart, at the scars visible above the hospital gown, at the way she holds herself even while injured. Navy, 12 years, Fleet Marine Force corpsman. The doctor's demeanor shifts, professional respect replacing mild condescension. "You've probably seen more trauma medicine than I have." Sarah doesn't bother confirming. The scar tissue tells its own story, a roadmap of close calls and moments where luck or skill or divine intervention made the difference between life and death. "I'll step up the ibuprofen, add prescription strength acetaminophen, and a referral to our pain management specialist who works with veterans." Sarah nods, grateful for the respect shown to her decision. Too many of her brothers and sisters in arms have come home with wounds invisible to the eye, but no less debilitating. PTSD paired with opioid dependence, a combination that's claimed more lives after deployment than combat itself. As the medical team finishes bandaging her shoulder, there's a knock at the door. A uniformed police officer enters, mid-30s, crew cut, the careful posture of a man who spent time in the service before trading one uniform for another. "Officer Mike Brennan." "Ms. Calloway, I need to get your statement about the shooting if you're up to it. Sarah recounts the events with military precision. Time, location, details of the shooter, the sequence of actions. Nothing wasted, nothing embellished. You said you spotted the gunman before he fired. Brennan's pen hovers above his notepad. How? Light reflection from the barrel. I was scanning. Habit from deployment. And you immediately moved to protect Mr. Garrett. Did you know him? Never met him. Saw the threat. Responded. Sarah's eyes meet the officer's. You served? Brennan nods. Army, 2 tours in Iraq. Then you understand. A moment of silent acknowledgement passes between them. The unspoken brotherhood of those who've worn the uniform, who know what it means to react without hesitation when threats appear. The man you saved, Brennan says carefully, Declan Garrett, he's the president of the Ironclad Motorcycle Club. Not exactly a model citizen in the eyes of the law. Sarah's expression remains neutral. I didn't check his background before I pushed him out of the line of fire. Brennan's mouth twitches. Fair enough. Just so you're aware, this might not be over. The shooter was likely connected to a rival club called the Viper Syndicate. There's been tension between them and the Ironclad for months. Not my concern. I did what anyone with my training would have done. The officer looks like he wants to say more but thinks better of it. Well, the department appreciates your cooperation. We'll need you to come in tomorrow or the next day to sign your official statement. He pauses at the door. Ms. Calloway, the shooter, we got an ID from street cameras. He shows her a photo on his phone. Sarah's world stops. The face staring back at her is older, harder. Lines around the eyes that weren't there before, but unmistakable. Jasper Webb, 34, former Army, 10th Mountain Division, dishonorably discharged in 2006 for assaulting an officer. Sarah's voice comes out flat, controlled. I know him. Brennan's eyebrows rise. How? Fallujah, 2005. Multiple shrapnel wounds from an IED. I treated him. The memory hits her like a physical blow. A dusty street, the acrid smell of explosives. Young Jasper Webb on a gurney, blood soaking through his uniform, eyes wide with fear and pain. Don't let me die, Doc. Please. I got a girl back home. Don't let me die. She'd worked on him for 40 minutes, stabilized him, got him on the medevac, saved his life. And today he tried to kill a man she'd never met. Would have killed her in the process if his aim had been better. He remembered me, Sarah says quietly. Brennan closes his notebook. Get some rest, Ms. Calloway. We'll be in touch. After he leaves, Sarah sits alone in the examination room. The morphine-free pain makes itself known with authority. Her shoulder throbs in time with her heartbeat, but physical pain she can handle. It's the other kind that's harder to manage. The knowledge that she saved Jasper Webb's life in Fallujah gave him a second chance, and he used it to become someone who shoots at people on Main Street in broad daylight. Another knock at the door interrupts her thoughts. This time, it's Declan Garrett. He's changed clothes. The blood-stained leather vest is gone, replaced by a simple black t-shirt and worn jeans. But even in civilian clothes, there's something about him that commands attention. The way he moves, the way he holds himself. A man accustomed to command, to respect. He carries a bouquet of wildflowers, desert marigolds, and Indian paintbrush. Simple, unpretentious. These seemed more your style than roses. No greeting, no small talk, direct, like her. Thank you. Sarah gestures to a chair. Declan sits. His movements betray old injuries, a slight favoring of his right knee, the careful way he eases into the chair. You didn't need to come. Yes, I did. The statement is simple, absolute. What you did today, most people would have run for cover. Sarah shrugs, then winces as the movement pulls at her stitches. Not how I'm wired. Military? Navy, corpsman, 12 years, 3 deployments. Declan nods, unsurprised. Thought so. You move like someone who's been downrange, combat trained. A silence falls between them. Not uncomfortable, just weighted. Mutual assessment. The man who shot at you, Sarah finally says. You know who he is? Working on it. The Viper Syndicate has been pushing into our territory for months. This feels like their style. Sarah raises an eyebrow. The stereotype isn't entirely accurate, Miss Calloway. A hint of amusement in Declan's voice. We've had our troubles with the law, but we don't deal drugs, and we protect our community. And the Vipers are different. The Vipers will sell to teenagers, bring in harder stuff. They're the ones willing to put a bullet in someone on a crowded street. And now they've made it personal. Yes, the single word carries the weight of what will come next. Retribution, justice, or whatever passes for it in his world. Declan reaches into his pocket, withdraws a business card. Not what she expected. It bears only a phone number, no name, no company. If you need anything at all, you call this number, day or night. He places it on the table beside the wildflowers. The ironclad takes care of its own, and after today, you've earned that much. Sarah doesn't reach for the card. I didn't do it for your club, Mr. Garrett. Declan, and I know you did it because that's who you are. He stands, movements careful but deliberate, which is exactly why the debt matters. He pauses at the door. You got a ride home? I'll manage. Declan shakes his head. There's a man named Boone waiting outside. Former Army Ranger. He'll see you home safely. Before Sarah can protest, he adds, until we find the shooter, you're at risk. Not because of who you are, but because of what you did. Let us do this much. After he leaves, Sarah sits in silence, considering the card on the table. She spent her entire adult life following a code. Duty, honor, service. From what little she's seen, Declan lives by a code too. Different in its specifics, but perhaps not in its foundations. She slips the card into her pocket. Some debts, it seems, are non-negotiable. The ride from the hospital is a study in contrasts. Sarah, still in her blood-stained clothes, perched on the back of a meticulously maintained Harley-Davidson street glide, her good arm wrapped around the waist of a man who introduced himself simply as Boone. Boone Tanner, 42 years old, former Army Ranger. The way he handles the bike speaks of more time on two wheels than four. Precision, awareness, the hypervigilance that veterans carry home from war zones. He doesn't attempt conversation over the engine's roar, which suits Sarah fine. By the time they pull up to her rental house on Sycamore Street, she's fighting to maintain her composure. The adrenaline crash is hitting hard, amplifying the pain in her shoulder. Need help getting inside? Boone asks as he kills the engine. I've got it. Sarah eases herself off the bike with as much dignity as she can muster. Thank you for the ride. Boone nods, his expression hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. Boss said to tell you he'll check in tomorrow, and to keep that number handy. After he rides away, Sarah stands in her small front yard, listening to the Harley's diminishing growl. The neighborhood is quiet. Modest, single-story homes with carports instead of garages. Yards that range from meticulously maintained to respectably functional. Her place falls into the latter category, neat but unadorned. Inside, she moves directly to the bathroom, shedding her blood-stained shirt with careful movements. The bandage is holding, but the area around it has turned an angry red. She swallows the prescription-strength ibuprofen dry, leans against the sink, studies her reflection. The woman staring back has changed since her first deployment in 2003. The fresh-faced 20-year-old who joined the Navy to escape a dying Rust Belt town is long gone, replaced by someone harder, more contained, eyes that have seen too much, a mouth that smiles too rarely. The scars tell the story that her service record only hints at. Sarah moves to the living room. Her workbench sits in the corner, leather pieces arranged neatly across the surface. The half-finished messenger bag, belt strips, the shoulder holster awaiting decorative stitching. Working leather has become her therapy. The repetitive actions of cutting, stamping, and stitching provide a meditative focus that quiets the noise in her head. Her phone buzzes on the kitchen counter, the third call from her father since the hospital contacted him as her emergency contact. Robert Calloway isn't a man who panics easily, but getting word that his only child has been shot would test anyone's composure. "I'm fine, Dad. The hospital said you took a bullet." Clayton's voice is steady, but she can hear the strain beneath it. "Clean through and through. Left shoulder, no major damage." "What happened?" The question comes with the directness of a man who spent 30 years in the Marines before retiring as a master gunnery sergeant. No wasted words, no unnecessary emotion. Sarah gives him the abbreviated version, omitting details that would only worry him more. "You coming over tomorrow?" she asks, changing the subject. "Planned on it. Need to see for myself that you're in one piece." A pause. "You taking the painkillers they gave you?" "No narcotics, just the heavy-duty ibuprofen." "Good." The single word carries approval and shared understanding. Clayton has seen too many good Marines lose themselves to pills after coming home wounded. "Need anything tonight?" "I'm set. Get some rest, old man." Watch who you're calling old. The familiar banter is a comfort to them both. "Semper Fi, kid." "Semper Fi, Dad." After hanging up, Sarah eases herself onto the couch, propping her injured arm on a cushion. The television remains off. She prefers the quiet, has grown accustomed to it in the 3 years since leaving the service. Her thoughts turn to Declan Garrett, to the debt he believes he owes her. In her 12 years of service, Sarah learned to read people quickly, a survival skill in places where misplaced trust could be fatal. Declan carries himself with the confidence of a man accustomed to command. But there's something else there too, a sense of honor that transcends his outlaw appearance, a code that might not align with conventional society, but is no less rigid for that difference. Her phone buzzes again, this time a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Calloway, this is Sheriff Mercer. Wanted to check in after today's incident. Can you stop by my office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.? Some developments you should know about." Sarah stares at the message, the sheriff personally reaching out, not through Officer Brennan, not through official channels. Something about that feels significant. She types a response. "I'll be there." Sleep comes in fits and starts. Every time she shifts position, her shoulder reminds her that a 9mm bullet passed through it. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees Jasper Webb's face, young, scared, bleeding out on that gurney in Fallujah, and older, harder, squeezing a trigger on Main Street. The nightmares when they come are familiar, fragmented memories of firefights and field surgeries, of holding pressure on wounds while calling for medevac, of telling young Marines they'd be okay when she wasn't sure it was true. She wakes before dawn, sheets damp with sweat, the phantom scent of cordite and copper in her nostrils. Some wounds never fully heal. Some instincts, once honed by war, never truly go dormant. Sunday morning dawns with the clarity particular to the desert. Sharp-edged light that defines every surface it touches. Shadows so deep they seem solid. Sarah moves carefully through her morning routine. Simple tasks made complicated by her injured shoulder. Dressing takes twice as long. Coffee has to be made left-handed. Changing the bandage requires contortions that pull painfully at her stitches. By the time she's ready to head to the sheriff's office, the local news is already running the story. A shooting on Main Street, a mysterious woman who saved the life of a known ironclad leader. Police seeking information on a suspect still at large. Her phone chimes with a text. Her father. "Saw the news. Coming over at 10. Don't argue." Sarah doesn't bother arguing. When Clayton Calloway makes up his mind, the only thing more stubborn is a mule with a grudge. The Oak Ridge County Sheriff's Office occupies a modern building on the north side of town, all glass and steel. a far cry from the old Western-style jailhouse that used to serve the county. Sheriff Augustus Mercer meets her in the lobby personally. 60 years old, salt and pepper hair cropped close to his scalp, the bearing of a man who's carried authority for most of his adult life. "Ms. Calloway, thank you for coming in." He extends his hand. Sarah shakes it, noting the firm grip, the direct eye contact. "Sheriff, please call me Gus, and let's talk in my office rather than an interrogation room. This isn't that kind of conversation." He leads her down a hallway, past deputies working at desks, into a corner office with windows overlooking the town. The office is neat, organized. Photos on the wall show Mercer in uniform, various ceremonies, commendations, and one photo that catches Sarah's eye. A young man in Marine Corps dress blues, early 20s, same eyes as the sheriff. Mercer catches her looking. "My son, Danny, he was a Marine." The past tense lands like a blow. "I'm sorry." Mercer nods, gestures to a chair. 8 months ago, fentanyl overdose. The words are delivered flatly, emotionally controlled, but Sarah recognizes the grief beneath. He served 3 tours, Iraq and Afghanistan, came home with injuries, physical and otherwise, got prescribed painkillers for his back. Sarah knows where this is going. She's heard variations of this story too many times. The prescription ran out, but the pain didn't, so he found other sources. Mercer sits heavily in his chair. "I'm telling you this because it's relevant to what happened yesterday and to what's happening in this county." He opens a file on his desk, slides a photo across to Sarah. "This is the man who shot you, Jasper Webb, former Army, but you already know that." He slides another photo. "This is who he works for now." The second photo shows a man in his mid-50s, heavily tattooed, scarred, dangerous looking even in a still image. He wears a leather vest covered in patches. The largest shows a viper coiled around a skull. Victor Kessler, goes by the name Venom now, president of the Viper Syndicate. Sarah studies the photo. Something about the face seems familiar, but she can't place it. The Vipers moved into Oak Ridge County about 18 months ago. Since then, we've seen a sharp increase in opioid-related deaths, 26 in the last year alone. Mercer's jaw tightens. They're targeting veterans specifically, using pain management as a gateway to dependency, then transitioning them to cheaper, more dangerous alternatives, fentanyl primarily. And my father's friend mentioned the tension between them in the Ironclad. Declan Garrett's club has been blocking them, making it clear that kind of business isn't welcome here. Mercer leans forward. "Miss Calloway, I'm telling you this because you're involved now, whether you want to be or not. Webb's shot wasn't random, and it wasn't just about Garrett." He slides a third photo across the desk. Sarah's blood runs cold. The photo shows her, taken from a distance, outside the Veterans Center, talking to one of the support group members. "We found this on Webb's phone. You were a target, have been for months." "Why?" "Because you've been helping veterans, running that support group, getting them into legitimate treatment programs instead of the pain management pipeline the Vipers have been building." Sarah thinks back to Marcus, to the admission about taking more pills than prescribed. 6 months ago, you helped a former Army medic get into a private treatment program. Remember? Sarah does. James Wilder, 3 tours in Afghanistan, back injury that had him on high-dose opioids. She'd recognized the signs of dependency, used her connections to get him into a specialized program. "You interfered with their operation, made yourself a problem." Mercer's expression is grim. Webb's mission wasn't just to kill Garrett, it was to eliminate both of you. 2 problems with 1 bullet. Sarah absorbs this, the implications settling like lead in her stomach. What does Garrett know about this? Probably more than I do. The Ironclad has better intelligence networks than law enforcement when it comes to the criminal underworld. A knock at the door interrupts them. Officer Brennan enters. "Sheriff, we've got a development. Webb was found 30 minutes ago, behind the old Phillips factory on the south side. Dead? Critical condition. Beaten. Shot twice. Someone worked him over pretty thoroughly. Mercer's expression doesn't change, but Sarah sees the calculation behind his eyes. The Vipers cleaning house? That'd be my guess. Punishing failure. After Brennan leaves, Mercer turns back to Sarah. You see what you're dealing with? These aren't street thugs. They're organized, disciplined, and they don't tolerate mistakes. What do you want from me, Sheriff? I want you to be careful. I want you to know that my office will do everything we can to protect you. But I also want you to understand that if Garrett offers you protection, you might want to consider accepting it. The suggestion surprises her. You're suggesting I trust an outlaw motorcycle club? I'm suggesting that in this particular situation, Garrett's interests align with yours, and his methods, while extra-legal, are effective. Mercer stands, walks to the window, looks out at Oak Ridge spread below. I've known Declan Garrett for 30 years. Since the Ironclad first set up their charter here, we've had our disagreements, made our arrests, but I'll tell you something. He turns back to face her. If there's one man in the Ironclad who has a moral compass, it's him. He won't let anything happen to you, not after what you did. Sarah leaves the sheriff's office with more questions than answers. Her phone rings as she reaches her truck. Unknown number. But she's starting to recognize the pattern. Ms. Calloway? Declan's voice. Formal, but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. We need to talk. Can you come to the clubhouse? 2 o'clock? Sarah checks her watch. 11:30. Enough time to meet with her father first. I'll be there. Good. We've got developments. Things you need to know. The line goes dead. Sarah sits in her truck, engine running, air conditioning fighting the Arizona heat. In the span of 24 hours, her quiet life has been turned inside out. She's been shot, discovered she's been targeted for months, learned that the man she saved in Fallujah has become a hired gun. And now she's about to walk into a motorcycle club's headquarters. 3 years of keeping her head down, staying out of trouble, living quietly, all of it undone by 3 strides across Main Street and a decision made in less than a second. She pulls out of the parking lot, heading toward her father's house, knowing that whatever comes next, she's going to need his counsel. Because Sarah Calloway has just stepped into a world where the rules are different, where loyalty is currency and debts are paid in blood. And somehow she's become a player in a game she doesn't fully understand. But she's learning fast. And if 12 years in the Navy taught her anything, it's how to adapt to hostile environments. This is just a different kind of battlefield, and Sarah has never backed down from a fight. Clayton Calloway's pickup truck sits in the driveway when Sarah pulls up. The old Ford has seen better decades, but runs like the day it rolled off the assembly line. Her father takes care of his tools, whether they're wrenches or vehicles or relationships. She finds him in the kitchen, coffee already brewed, 2 cups on the table. He's still in his work coveralls, oil stains that no amount of washing will ever remove. He looks up when she enters. His pale blue eyes take in her bandaged shoulder, the slight stiffness in her movements, the shadows under her eyes that speak of a sleepless night. Sit, not a request, an order delivered in the same tone he used when she was 8 years old and thought climbing onto the garage roof was a good idea. Sarah sits. Clayton pours coffee, sets a cup in front of her, takes the chair across the table. Sheriff called me this morning. Of course he did. Small-town politics, old connections. Her father and Gus Mercer have known each other for 20 years. Told me about Webb, about the Vipers, about you being on their radar. Clayton's hands wrap around his coffee cup. Weathered, scarred, the hands of a man who's worked hard his entire life. You planning to tell me you can handle yourself? I can handle myself. I know you can. Raised you that way. But there's a difference between handling yourself in a firefight and dealing with organized criminals on your home turf. Sarah sips her coffee. waiting. Her father has more to say. She can see it in the set of his jaw. "The man you saved, Declan Garrett." Clayton stands, walks to the living room, returns with that photo, the one from his workbench. The three men in desert camouflage. He sets it on the table between them. Kuwait, 1991. Joint Operation, Force Recon, and Army Rangers. We were supposed to identify chemical weapons facilities near the border. His finger taps the man on the left. "That's Garrett, staff sergeant then. Good man, solid tactical mind. Kept his people alive when things went sideways." Sarah leans closer, studying the younger version of the man she pushed out of a bullet's path. "What happened?" "Intelligence failure. Someone compromised the mission, gave our position to Iraqi forces. We got pinned down in a wadi, taking heavy fire from three sides." Clayton's voice goes distant, remembering. "Garrett's squad was supposed to provide our extraction. Protocols said they should have waited for air support, maintained position. But he didn't wait. No, he brought his men straight into the firefight, created a corridor for us to withdraw through." Her father's jaw tightens. "We were carrying wounded, moving slow. Garrett's position was exposed. No cover worth mentioning. They took casualties holding that line, but they didn't break." Sarah can picture it. The chaos, the noise, the desperate scramble to get wounded men to safety while bullets tear the air apart. "How many did you lose?" "3 Rangers died that day. Good men, young, 22, 23 years old." Clayton's finger moves to the third man in the photo, the one whose face is partially obscured by shadow. "This is Staff Sergeant Victor Kessler, Intel Liaison. He was responsible for coordinating our extraction, maintaining secure communications." Sarah's blood goes cold. Kessler, Victor Kessler. The name from Sheriff Mercer's office. The photo of the scarred, tattooed man who now calls himself Venom. "You're saying the Viper Syndicate president was your intel officer in Kuwait?" Clayton nods slowly. "He sold us out, sold our position to the Iraqis. 3 men died because of his betrayal." Jesus Christ. "We couldn't prove it, not definitively, but the evidence was there for anyone willing to look. Inconsistencies in his reports, equipment failures at convenient times, the precision of the enemy's response to our movements." Her father's hands tighten around his coffee cup. "Investigation was started, then quietly discontinued. Politics, oil interests, diplomatic considerations, the usual reasons for burying uncomfortable truths." And Kessler walked away. Honorable discharge, decorations, his record intact. Clayton meets her eyes. Until he didn't. About 10 years ago, he disappeared, fell off the grid entirely. I've been tracking him ever since, following rumors, connecting dots. That's why you moved us here, to Oak Ridge. 12 of the 15 men from that Kuwait operation settled in this county. I wanted to be close, to warn them if Kessler ever surfaced. The pieces fall into place with sickening clarity. He came back as Venom, started the Viper Syndicate, and he's been targeting Kuwait veterans. 5 dead in the past 2 years, all ruled overdoses, all connected to pain management through the VA. Sarah's mind races through the implications. He's eliminating witnesses, anyone who could identify him. Connect Victor Kessler to Venom. That's my theory. Can't prove it, but the pattern's there. Clayton stands, walks to the window, stares out at the desert landscape beyond his backyard. I saved Garrett's life that day. Sniper on a ridge we hadn't cleared. Had him in his sights. I saw the glint off the scope. Got my shot off first. He turns back to face Sarah. Like father, like daughter, it seems. The parallel is almost eerie. Both of them, decades apart, saving the same man from hidden threats. Garrett knows, doesn't he? He recognized me. Those Callaway eyes are distinctive. Your mother always said they were like looking into winter sky. Sarah absorbs this. Declan's immediate trust, his insistence on protection, the debt he believes he owes. It's not just about yesterday's shooting. It's about a 33-year-old debt to her father, a debt that's now passed to the next generation. "What do I do, Dad?" Clayton returns to his chair, looks at his daughter with the steady gaze of a man who's faced impossible choices before. "You do what Callaways always do. Stand up, face the threat, protect those who can't protect themselves. Even if it means working with an outlaw motorcycle club, especially then. Garrett's not the devil the law makes him out to be, but he's not a saint either. He operates in gray areas, but his code, twisted as it might seem to outsiders, includes honor, loyalty, protection of the innocent." Her father leans forward. "Kessler has none of that. He's a predator wearing the skin of a veteran, using our brother's pain and sacrifice for profit, targeting the very men he once served with." "Sheriff Mercer's son died from Viper drugs." Clayton nods grimly. "Danny Mercer, good kid, served honorably, came home broken. And Kessler's organization fed on that brokenness until there was nothing left." The kitchen clock ticks in the silence, marking time that feels suddenly precious. "The clubhouse meeting is at 2, Sarah says. "I know. Garrett called me this morning, asked if I'd be there." "You're coming?" 33 years ago, that man risked his life for mine, and now my daughter did the same for him. "You think I'm going to sit this out?" Sarah manages a small smile, the first since the shooting. "Semper Fi?" "Always, kid, always." The Ironclad Motorcycle Club's headquarters sits on the eastern edge of Oak Ridge. What used to be an auto repair garage, solid brick construction, a large metal workshop, and a gravel lot that's currently filled with motorcycles. Sarah counts at least 50 bikes as she pulls in. Clayton follows in his pickup, both of them arriving precisely at 2 o'clock. Military precision, old habits. Declan stands near the entrance, talking to 2 men whose leather vests mark them as officers in the club. At Sarah and Clayton's approach, he turns. His expression shifts when he sees the older man. For a long moment, the 2 veterans just stare at each other, 33 years compressed into a single look. Then Declan extends his hand. "Sergeant Major Calloway." Clayton takes it. "Staff Sergeant Garrett, though I hear it's President Garrett now." Times change, men change, but some debts don't. No, they don't. The handshake lasts a beat longer than necessary, a reconnection of bonds forged in combat. Declan gestures to the men beside him. "This is Boone Tanner, Sergeant at Arms, and Marcus Webb, no relation to Jasper. Marcus is our treasurer." Boone is the man who drove Sarah home from the hospital. Up close, she can see the Ranger Tab tattoo on his forearm, the scar tissue that speaks of combat injuries. Marcus is shorter, wiry, intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Gentlemen, this is Sarah Calloway, and her father Clayton." "Pleasure, ma'am," Boone says with unexpected formality. Marcus nods. "Declan mentioned you're a corpsman. I was a medic with the 101st Airborne. Always had respect for Navy medical." The connection established, they move inside. The clubhouse interior surprises Sarah again. She expected dark, smoky, heavy metal music and the stench of stale beer. Instead, it's well lit, organized. A long wooden table dominates the center of the room, surrounded by mismatched chairs. The walls are covered with club memorabilia, photographs, patches, framed news clippings chronicling decades of Ironclad history. A worn American flag hangs prominently at one end of the room, flanked by military service banners. Beneath them, a memorial wall displays photographs of fallen members, many in uniform from various eras. Sarah recognizes the silent tribute for what it is, a brotherhood remembering its own. The room fills quickly, 40 men, most in their 40s to 60s, a few younger prospects moving among them, serving drinks, showing deference to the older members. The demographics tell a story. This isn't a gang of young thugs. It's a group of middle-aged veterans who found a second family after the military. Declan moves to the head of the table. gestures for Sarah and Clayton to sit near him. The symbolism isn't lost on anyone present. He's placing them in positions of respect within the club structure, making a statement without words. Brothers. Declan's voice cuts through the rumble of conversation. The room falls silent immediately. Most of you know why we're here. Yesterday on Main Street, a viper took a shot at me. He missed because this woman saw it coming and put herself between me and the bullet. All eyes turned to Sarah. Sarah Calloway, 12 years as a Navy corpsman, 3 combat deployments. She doesn't know our world, has no dog in our fight with the vipers. But she acted without hesitation when she saw one of us in danger. Declan pauses, letting that sink in. For that, she's earned our respect and our protection. A man halfway down the table speaks up. We know who pulled the trigger? Jasper Webb, former Army, dishonorably discharged. Been riding with the Vipers about 6 months. Where is he now? Hospital. Critical condition. Someone worked him over pretty thoroughly before we could get to him. Murmurs ripple through the assembly. Venom cleaning house, Boone says from his position near Declan. That's what we think. Webb failed his mission. The Vipers don't tolerate failure. Clayton speaks for the first time. You all need to understand something. Victor Kessler, the man you know as Venom, isn't just some drug dealer who moved into your territory. The room shifts attention to the older man. He's a traitor, a man who sold out his brothers in Kuwait. 3 Rangers died because he gave our position to the enemy. Clayton's voice carries the weight of absolute conviction. He's been operating under false identities for 30 years, and now he's here, in Oak Ridge, targeting the very men he once served with. Declan nods. We've confirmed what Clayton's saying. 5 deaths in the past 2 years, all veterans, all from the Kuwait operation, all ruled overdoses. Marcus, the treasurer, leans forward. He's not just running a drug operation, he's systematically eliminating witnesses. Which means Sarah and Clayton are both targets now, Boone adds. They've both interfered with his plans. The discussion continues, detailing the Viper Syndicate's movements over recent months. Territory encroachment, drug distribution networks, recruitment efforts targeting veterans. Sarah listens closely, building a mental map of the conflict. This isn't just about motorcycle clubs. It's about power, profit, and a man trying to bury his past by eliminating everyone who remembers it. We've confirmed the Vipers are bringing in product from Mexico, Declan says. Fentanyl pressed to look like legitimate pharmaceuticals, pure enough to kill with a quarter tablet. 26 deaths in the county this year. Sheriff Mercer's voice cuts in. Everyone turns. The sheriff stands in the doorway, in uniform, but his presence here speaks volumes about the unusual alliance forming. Sheriff, Declan acknowledges. Declan, Clayton. Mercer moves into the room, uninvited but not unwelcome. I'm here unofficially. What I'm about to share doesn't leave this room. He pulls out a file folder, sets it on the table. We have a man inside the Viper organization, Dr. Silas Drummond. He's been undercover for 2 years. Sarah's head snaps up. Silas? From the VA? Mercer nods. FBI, deep cover. He's been feeding us intelligence on the Viper operation. But, Clayton prompts, but Venom discovered him 3 months ago. He's been forcing Silas to continue his work, feeding us controlled information, while holding his wife hostage. The sheriff slides a photo across the table. A woman, middle-aged, tied to a chair, bruised. This was sent to Silas yesterday, after the shooting. A reminder that Venom controls everything. Sarah feels sick. Silas Drummond, the calm professional psychiatrist who runs her support group, who helps veterans navigate their trauma. He's been working for the FBI, and now he's trapped, forced to continue his cover while his wife suffers. What's the play? Declan asks. The question is directed at everyone, at the sheriff, at Clayton, at Sarah. This is the moment, the decision point, where lines get crossed and there's no going back. Mercer speaks carefully. Officially, my hands are tied. We're building a case, but it takes time. Warrants, evidence that will stand up in court. And unofficially? Unofficially, I'm a father who lost his son to Venom's poison, and I want that bastard to pay. The sheriff's mask cracks slightly, revealing the grief and rage beneath. I can't sanction what you're planning, can't be part of it, but I can give you 48 hours before I have to move officially. It's not permission, but it's not prohibition either. A gray area where justice and law might not be the same thing. Clayton stands. Garrett, you and I need to talk, privately. The two veterans move to a side office. Sarah watches them go. Two men who saved each other's lives decades ago, now facing a common enemy. Boone moves to sit beside Sarah. You don't have to be part of this. You've done enough. I'm already part of it. Venom made sure of that when he put me on his target list. Even so, this is going to get ugly. We're not talking about legal proceedings in courtrooms. Sarah meets his eyes. I've been in ugly situations before. Helmand Province, firefights that lasted hours, making decisions about who lives and who dies because you can't save everyone. Her voice is steady, certain. If Venom is eliminating veterans, using their pain and service against them, then I'm exactly where I need to be. Boone nods slowly, respect in his expression. You remind me of the corpsmen I worked with downrange, toughest people I ever met. We have to be. We're the ones picking up the pieces when everything goes to hell. In the office, Clayton and Declan face each other across a desk. I tracked Kessler for 30 years, Clayton says. Lost the trail a dozen times, but I never stopped looking. Why? Because 3 good men died. Because he betrayed everyone who wore the uniform. Because some debts can only be paid in justice. Declan leans back in his chair. And now he's here, in my town, poisoning veterans, eliminating the men we served with. What's your play? We have 48 hours before Mercer has to move officially. In that time, we extract Silas's wife, gather evidence, and force Venom into a position where he has to show himself. And then we let the law handle it. If the law can't, we do what we've always done, take care of our own. Clayton studies the younger man. You've built something here, a brotherhood, a code. You willing to risk it all for this? Yes. No hesitation, just absolute certainty. Because if we don't stop him, he'll keep killing, keep poisoning, and more fathers will bury their sons. The two men shake hands again, a pact formed. They return to the main room. Declan addresses the assembled club. Here's how this goes down. 3 teams. Team 1 evacuates the vulnerable veterans. Get them somewhere safe. Team 2 creates a diversion, makes Venom think we're hitting his main operation. Team 3 infiltrates his compound, extracts Silas's wife, gathers evidence. His eyes find Sarah. Team 3 is volunteer only, high risk, no guarantees. Sarah stands. I'm in. Boone rises beside her, as am I. 2 more members stand, veterans from the Kuwait operation, men who remember Victor Kessler before he became Venom. We're with you, boss, Declan nods. Then we move tonight, midnight, full tactical planning in 2 hours. The meeting breaks up, members moving with purpose, years of military training reasserting itself in the methodical preparation. Sarah finds herself standing with her father near the memorial wall. You don't have to do this, Katie. Yes, I do. Why? Because Silas's wife is being held hostage, because veterans are dying, because a traitor is using their service and sacrifice for profit. She turns to face Clayton. And because you raised me to stand up, to face threats, to protect those who can't protect themselves. Her father's eyes shine with something that might be pride, or fear, or both. Your mother would have said the same thing. I know. They stand in silence, looking at the photos of fallen ironclad members, men who served their country, then found a second family in this brotherhood. Semper Fi, Katie. Semper Fi, Dad. As the sun sets over Oak Ridge, three very different groups prepare for the same mission. The Ironclad Motorcycle Club, outlaws by society's definition, but bound by a code of honor that demands protection of the vulnerable. Sheriff Augustus Mercer and his trusted deputies, walking the razor's edge between law and justice, between their oaths and their consciences. And Sarah Calloway, a Navy corpsman who spent 12 years saving lives in war zones, who came home looking for peace, and instead found a different kind of war being waged in her own backyard. Tonight, they'll move against Victor Kessler, against the man who betrayed his brothers in Kuwait, who spent 30 years hiding behind false identities, who's built an empire on the suffering of those who served. The plan is sound, the tactics solid, the motivation clear. But war has a way of making even the best plans irrelevant. And Venom didn't survive 3 decades on the run by being predictable. As midnight approaches, Sarah checks her gear, her Sig Sauer, medical supplies, the training that's been drilled into her over 12 years of service. Her phone buzzes. A text from Silas Drummond. "Thank you. Whatever happens tonight, thank you for trying." She doesn't respond. Words seem inadequate. Instead, she finishes her preparations, focuses on the mission ahead. Somewhere across town, a woman is being held hostage. Veterans are being targeted, and a traitor is counting on fear and darkness to protect him. But he's about to discover something that Clayton Calloway learned decades ago in the Kuwaiti desert, and that Declan Garrett has built his entire life around, and that Sarah Calloway proved on Main Street just 2 days ago. Some people don't run when threats emerge. They run toward them, and they don't stop until the job is done. The clock strikes midnight, and the hunt begins.